Now I've got a question for you. What is the craziest fly you've ever caught a fish on? I know what mine is. I'm not going to tell you right now because with any luck, it's going to be the one that I'm about to tie for you right now. Okay, maybe this isn't the craziest fly out there, but it's certainly unique. The pattern is called the Big Hole Demon. And if you look up the history on it, you might see a lot of folks crediting this pattern to Dan Bailey of Livingston, Montana. But hats off to Michael Jensen, who discovered that the pattern was really created by a rancher named Pete Narancich in 1964. Now, Pete ran a ranch on the Big Hole River, and it was actually a place where Joe Brooks, the famed fly fisherman and writer, used to visit him. And Brooks wrote about the fly, and he ended up giving some to Dan Bailey, who sold them in his shop. And the fly did pretty well, so that's probably why a lot of folks think he came up with it. So about the pattern, it really is pretty unique, and I first came across it in a book on nymphs, but doing a little research, I learned that it's more commonly tied and fished as a streamer. But as Joe Brooks said, it's most effective when you fish it across a current, dead drift it for a little while, and then actively retrieve it. So it's kind of a nymph and a streamer in the same fly. Now there's nothing too difficult about this tie. The original did use junglecock body feathers for the tail, but a lot of folks now will substitute that with either a badger or some type of furnace feather. The body is a flat mylar tinsel. It's got a wire rib, which is optional. A lot of people don't even use that. And then you've got a black chenille for a thorax, and then either a black hackle or a badger hackle palmered up through the thorax. Now I think this was a really cool pattern, and it was definitely a fun one to tie. And oh yeah, after you watch this one, please do leave a comment with what is the craziest fly you've ever caught a fish with. So there's one in the vise. Pretty nifty looking pattern. Is it a nymph or is it a streamer? Well, I guess it really depends on what size you tie it on and how you fish it. I'm tying this on a size 6. So I'm going to call it a streamer. Now notice those tail feathers, how they're splayed out like that. I really kind of like that look. So I'm tying this on a size 6. It's a 3X long, and this is a new hook for me. Let me show you this. This is a Sprite, which was recently bought out by Partridge of Redditch. It is a UK company, but I found this and I really liked it because it's a true barbless streamer hook. So I'm going to use some black thread. Let's go ahead and put a base down to the start of the bend. And we do have a couple of options for this tail. The original one I saw was junglecock body feathers. Kind of the feathers that we don't really use on a junglecock. So that's what I'm using, but you can certainly use a furnace. And I'm going to tie them in one at a time so I can get them on the sides. Just right back here, let's go up a couple of loose wraps right there. Okay, I don't want it to spin around on me. I think that should be fine. Now I'll do the one on this side. Okay, and if I've got them situated how I want, I've kind of got them splayed out. They're not perfectly aligned on top, but they're close enough for me. And what I'm going to try to do right here is keep these stems parallel on the sides of the hook so that, you know, put some loose wraps and just try to keep them up on top so that, you know, I'll keep my underbody consistent here. And that's probably far enough. These stems are starting to get a little bit thick on me, so let's go ahead and snip them off. And that, the back half to 2/3 is really what we're going to have. We want to keep smooth. That's where we're going to have the tinsel body and the wire rib. So the next thing I'm going to catch in is going to be this wire rib. And a lot of people will skip this and leave this one off. Or they'll just rib it on the back half. And some people will rib it, you know, on the back and all the way up through the chenille thorax and the hackle, which I'm not going to do that. I've got another trick I read about for that, so we'll do that. I'll tell you in just a second. So let's go right here and now catch in some flat mylar tinsel. And this is a size 12. I'm going to catch in with the silver side toward the hook, because that's what I want showing. And you can kind of use this flat tinsel to help you get a smooth body if you didn't get it perfectly smooth with those, you know, feather stems and that wire rib. You can kind of use this to help smooth it out. So I think we're fine right there. Now let's come back up about right there. That's where we're going to stop wrapping this body. So go ahead and wrap this Mylar tinsel up. Tell about where your thread is hanging, and I'm not going to overlap these. It will usually give you just a little bit smoother of a body if you put the wraps right next to each other. And since I'm not going to wrap this rib up through my thorax and hackle, I'm going to go ahead and counter wrap it right now. And the next thing we're going to catch in, it's the hackle that we're going to palmer up through this thorax. So I'm going to catch this in. This is a rooster. You know, I thought about using a wet fly soft hackle, but none of them that I saw out there had done this. So I think it's the same principle as the woolly bugger. The front of this fly is. A woolly bugger uses rooster for, you know, a palmered hackle. So I think this one does too, and it should give you the same type action in the water. And the next thing we're going to catch in is our thorax black chenille. I stripped off a little bit just so I can catch in the bare thread right here. And I'm going to catch it in at the back. This is a medium chenille. I guess if you could use a small, if you were tying it smaller, or as a nymph, or you just wanted to, you know, you could use two wraps, 2 layers of the chenille. I'm going to put my first wrap behind that hackle, and now just wrap it up there to about an eye length behind the eye. Okay, a few wraps to smooth out this chenille here. Now we're just going to palmer this up. And I think you can, the theory is that you can get away without ribbing, putting your rib up through here to secure this, if you get these wraps in between the chenille wrap and you get them pretty close to the hook. That way no fish's teeth are really going to be gnawing on this stem. And so I think we're fine right there. Okay, let's bring it all the way up front. Now catch this off with a couple of wraps. And before I snip that, I'm just going to push everything back and work on my head a little bit here. And since I'm tying this as a streamer, I can use a pretty big head. Just want to get all these fibers here. That will be less I will have to trim later. Now let's go ahead and put our whip finish in before we trim that excess feather. And there we go, we're really done with it. A drop of head cement or varnish up there to smooth out that, you know, a little bit lumpy of a head, and I think we're good to go. So the big hole demon, a pretty nifty pattern, pretty fun to tie. I appreciate y'all watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.